spend your time where nobody else can do it for you. And for those other areas that you may be able to get better outside, use the cloud-based services.
Okay, so now you bring up a really interesting question. It's sort of part of like, if I'm a small business owner, what should I do? There's a lot of those out there, right? Almost everybody that I need to do business with will come to me and say, well, you can buy my cloud service, right? So every one of them does it. Plus I have my own systems today, which probably can be transitioned to the cloud. So the question is, what's the right amount? Should I have my entire business on the cloud? Should I have no in-house computing? Mm-hmm. Should I, and when I decide to make a transition, should I do it all at once? Yeah. So how do I make decisions on what's the best thing for me to do on a cloud basis and what I should consider keeping, if anything? How do I make that decision? What's the process?
Yeah. Can I suggest one quick thing? If it's only March or April and you want to get into a pool and it's outside, maybe you want to take a few steps at a time. And I think that's a good way to do it.
Excuse me, Maria is in a part of the country where she can probably be in the pool all year round.
Oh, okay, not there.
No, wait a minute. I was born in Cuba, so I don't get into the pool until the summertime, Irving. No matter if I'm in Florida or not. So
sorry.
Okay. Well, but let's assume for the purposes of this question that the small business owner is in Massachusetts.
Okay. It's a good one. No, it's just that it is a change. It may be a good change. It may save you a lot of money in the end, but I think you have to acclimate to it. And if you're an SMB, you really want to make sure you feel comfortable with it, that you know what kind of bills you're going to be getting, because a lot of people are surprised as their use grows, especially with storage. And I'd love Maria to talk later about all this data protection, data security benefits, but you also have to watch these bills coming in to make sure that you're doing the right amount. And in fact, there are alternatives which can bring the cloud services to a server near you from a couple of the companies, not to, toot their horn or anything. But if you look at Dell and HPE 4.2, they offer to do all that, put you on the cloud, and keep it at your site in a server area, and they maintain it. So my point is there are a lot of options, there are a lot of partners, and I think there's a lot of need for SMBs to do due diligence and to talk to their friends and business associates. Who did you work with for cloud? Who do you feel comfortable working with?
So like any other supplier, right, Jean? I mean, when you think about it, that's the same process you would go if you were picking and you were buying any other service, is to do your homework. And I agree with Jean that you want to start off small and you want to go at a pace that you're comfortable in. Because remember that going to the cloud also means that you give up some amount of control. Also, you're now the cloud provider is the one that has the application or the service. And so if you were used to doing everything your own way, you really have to start getting used to the fact that you're going to probably have that service provider has a set of processes that you're going to have to also pick up. And if you're not super technical, you also want to adapt yourself to using the technology, using it on your web, on the browser and mobile. So you can start off small, and then maybe you can pick up the pace once you get a little bit more comfortable. But I don't think it'll ever go completely cloud. I haven't seen that happen yet. But certainly going at more and more of a faster pace.
But I'm going to go back to my question, because it sounds like, I think I heard from Jean, there might be some higher costs when I go to cloud. And I also heard from Maria, I'm giving up control, right? So why would I do it? What's the point?
I would love Maria to come back and explain about the data protection stuff, because, SMBs have a lot going on. They're always juggling a lot of different tasks, and doing regular and thorough data protection and data backup is not necessarily their strong suit. Having that part of things as something not to worry about would be a tremendous relief, because as you know, if there's any disruption in power or network or whatever, you can lose a lot. So I think that would be definitely a business benefit you can appreciate. And it's something where, again, you probably want to check it out and partner with someone that you're comfortable with. But this automatic backup protection security from some services would be of great benefit.
If I may add, this is an excellent question because it gets down to your business strategy, which we all need to have. And again, let me use an example, which is the way I like to think concretely. So there are restaurants that are very proud about the fact that they make their own desserts, including making their own ice cream. That one of the attractions of that restaurant is you go because, they have these great bakers and people who make ice cream and so on. Many other restaurants will not do that. They will get their sweets and their ice cream and so on from somebody else. And if somebody with a restaurant said, well, Irving, which one should I do? The answer is, look, it depends whether you have a highly skilled baker in your staff or somebody like that, and whether you think that's a major differentiator that you will do. If the answer is yes, by all means. If you don't have those skills, you better off not doing it because you may not do as good a job. Let's take a small business. So cybersecurity is more important than ever. Do you have the skills to protect your critical data yourself versus putting it with somebody who does that for a living for many, many, many businesses, which as a result can afford to invest a lot more in highly talented experts in security and so on? If the answer is you don't have those skills, you're better off relying on the company that can better protect you because they do that for a living. If you think you can do it, then by all means, then that can become your differentiator and you should advertise it and so on. So it really depends on how you want to differentiate yourself, how you want to spend your resources and so on. And every business will do it a little bit different.
So Irving, your assessment is it's a build it or buy it question for skills and resources. So yes. The value statement you would make on whether I should go cloud or do it myself is an assessment of build or buy from a skills and resources standpoint. So Maria, what about you?
Yeah, so I do want to just jump on the security benefits, the infrastructure, the hardening of the infrastructure that will be available from the vendors who make this their living. So I will just triple pile on that. In addition to the skills, the operational benefits, two other things come to mind for me for small, medium businesses. One is just access to new customers and new suppliers, right? The ability to be kind of getting on the web and expanding your network and having access to more customers. And if you do buy on the web with an app or a marketplace, then you're going to have suppliers available to you that you were not going to be able to do before. And then the last thing is, from an employee perspective, just think about the ability to be able to have an app that can run on your phone, it can run on a PC, and that you'll be able to access those applications anywhere. So yeah, I have my travel app that runs in the cloud, and I have it with me at all times. I have all other kinds of really useful cloud applications that now go everywhere with me. And I think this ability to have this mobility, this flexibility, because you don't have to take your PC everywhere, it's in the cloud, is also an advantage for yourself and your employees.
So definitely you're on the security piece, but also there's an employee satisfaction piece, which allows them to work more flexibly if they're not stuck in the office attached to the server, but they can move around. So it has a characteristic that makes you more appealing as an employer, because people have flexible work. Jean, I'm going to jump in and get your opinion. We've heard Irving and Maria on what they think are the priorities. What do you think is the top priority on how a small business should decide to move their application to the cloud or not? Very helpful. Thank you to the team. There's a lot. So the answer is there's a lot of considerations. There's a lot of pros and cons, and you should really be looking at this as it aligns to your business objectives. So let's talk a little bit about, now I'm a business owner and I've decided I do want to do some of my applications in the cloud. The question is, how do I get from here to there? Where do I start? And this was a question that was posed to me actually from a business owner very recently. And they said that their team was suggesting a complete rip and replace, get rid of their current system and do everything now in a cloud-based system. And my temperature, I started to sweat when they started talking about that. So let's talk about what you know from your experiences, and what do you think is a way for a business owner to get from where they are to what we think is the optimal hybrid solution for their business? Irving, you want to start?
Sure. So probably the easiest things to get from the cloud are the more, let me call it, everyday commodity applications that everybody does the same way. Email, hosting a website. In most of those, there is very little differentiation. And usually, cloud service providers can offer those applications on a public cloud at probably quite good rates because so many people use them. Also, because those are relatively well-known, simple applications, that's a good way to get experience in using them, as opposed to let me say, your more mission-critical applications that you're being much more careful with. So I would start with these commodity kinds of applications that you need, but are not differentiators. And next, I would say, if somebody wants to do new application development, that's a very common way. I still remember in the early days of cloud, that one way that within a company, they first got into cloud is if there were people, if there was a department or a group of people that wanted to start developing a new application, in the past, they would have had to buy some hardware and they would have had to get some software. So they would have had to go through that cycle. And with cloud, they could just go to the cloud service provider, get some hardware as a service, get some application and development tools as in services, and start developing the application. And that's, in my mind, a good way to get going. And when you do that, you start learning what it is, what it's not. You start getting into it. You start getting your feet wet in this application area. And then you can start moving to, let me say, migrating systematically your applications to the cloud. Systematically, not all at once, just do it as you have to feel comfortable doing it. You never want to, you don't want to stay up at night saying, oh my God, what did I do?
So that's a good point. Application development certainly is a great area because you can reduce the risk when you're doing application development. You're taking it away from your production system and you're doing it offline, and that's a great way of reducing risk. But Maria, let's say for instance, let's say I'm a contract manufacturer, and so I've already done the email thing. I've probably already done maybe some of my financial applications, but now I'm looking at my production systems. Everything from taking in the designs and then actually doing managing the manufacturing process. Where do you think I should start? You're on mute. I know this is the thing. The pandemic has taught us how to all help each other on that.
Well, I wanted to make sure I didn't have noise either.
Yeah.
So now I'm like noise sensitive. Look, I think that's a really good question, and I know what we tell large customers, but I don't necessarily think that's the same advice for small customers. And what we tell large customers is you start with your core financials and you move that first, and then you build on top of that. I think that's probably not the prudent thing for a small business owner to do yet. But I would say, look at, and Irving made a good point that, first of all, you have to understand your business and where is your differentiation? Is it in manufacturing? Is it in procurement? Is it in your HR? Is it in your sales or your marketing? And wherever you think your differentiation is, that might not be where you want to go first. You want to look at those processes maybe that are more repetitive for you, where maybe you have some skill gaps. And where maybe moving and having more flexibility is where you want to go. But look at it from a process perspective, not just from an application. So what process makes the most sense to move to the cloud next? You could start with your HR processes and say, okay, all of my hiring, recruiting, onboarding, and all of the evaluations, I can do that as well. Oh, I can do all of my customer sales and marketing on the web. So I think it's a prudent choice to really inspect your business processes and your areas of differentiation, and don't just do it for cost reasons. Is the other advice I would give you. Don't just do it for cost.
So Jean, that's it. Yeah. So Jean, I kind of want to bounce that back to you because so both Irving and Maria are falling on the side of let's reduce risk in the beginning. Take the applications that aren't core to my business, but maybe nuisances, right? So I can get them off the plate and get those out of my ways and be very focused on the things that I'm good at. Now, on the other hand, though, that might find where I'm not going to get as much business benefit, right? I'm going to get maybe some process benefit. I'm going to get rid of resources, but now I've got my core applications.
Yeah.
What do I do? Because there might be capabilities in the cloud that are better than what I have. Even though I have those resources, they might be better out there.
Yeah. I just want to back up the train just a little bit.
Okay.
Because if you really want to feel comfortable, I like what was said about application development and testing, because that's how the cloud started way back in 2008. That's where the credit cards came in. Yes. People said, I can't get my company to give me enough resources to develop a new application, not a production application. And the application development and testing, that's what led to the early success of AWS, Amazon Web Services. Mm-hmm. They had extra cycles. People wanted to do testing. And then after you've done your app dev and your testing, that little segment of cloud was turned off. So that's a good way to start. That's one way. But the other way, which I would like to do myself, is start with the data backup protection stuff, which is such a very good pain in the whatever you want to say it is, because it has to be done, because you can start easy with that and see, do I like this service that offers to back up, to recover, to whatever? Am I happy with that? And if you're happy with that, then I would go, this is just me, but I would go to the application at that point. The applications are totally important. I love what you guys said about applications, but I would just back up the train a little bit and see if I'm comfortable with the other parts of the cloud, because we're talking about SMBs, This is our business, right? Just start it easy and then proceed. As to the greater capabilities of others in the cloud, this is where we get into the partner discussion, because any casual Google search, such as I did last night, there's a lot of providers out there. And what's interesting is you can go to the cloud service provider sites, and whether it's AWS or Azure, Google Cloud, and all of them would be happy to refer you to their friendly partners. But you could go the other way, which is, I already work with Comcast, I already work with Verizon, I already work with AT&T. They have partners. Or you can go to the VARs, the value-added resellers, and they're adding, because they used to sell you hardware, right? But now they're willing to help you with cloud services too. So there's multiple points of entry. I think the most important thing is to talk to your friends in business and see if they've tried this and taken some of the early steps. And, it's just a reference thing like anything else. If they're comfortable with it, doing X, Y, and Z, working with XYZ partner in your area, in your region, I would take a few steps that way. And if you're comfortable, then proceed from there. Yep.
So someone made a comment earlier that I think is really important. I think it's what you're getting at, Jean, which is it's tied to your business strategy.
Oh, yeah.
So on the one hand, you might have a strategy that says we are so good at this. It is our differentiator, as Irving says. We're going to stick to this and we're going to be the best at this. And we're going to get rid of all the other stuff. But then there's another way of looking at this, which is to turn this thing around and say, HR, we're going to keep it the way it is. We're doing the bare minimum, but that's good enough for us. But if I can take my manufacturing or my design or my distribution application and move it to the likes of an SAP, can I innovate? Is this an opportunity for me to take what I'm doing and be really, really great?
Well, Brenda, let me... I wanted to add before something you just brought up, which is that as I read articles and reports about advice on how to get into cloud, one of the advice people give is if you have an older application that is just not, it requires too much maintenance, it's too backfilled, don't move that old application to the cloud. Use the opportunity that you're going to the cloud to quote unquote modernize the application, to use a version of the application, whether it is an ERP application, an HR, finance, whatever, from one of the business partners in the cloud that is much more state-of-the-art for you. So if you have an application running in-house that you're very happy with, maybe keep running it in-house and so on, but now look at the ones that you need to start modernizing and then start pushing them to the cloud.
So it becomes part of your competitive advantage to now move to a more state-of-the-art approach.
Exactly. And the skills of what is the state-of-the-art for that application will now be some part of what you get from the business partner, the cloud provider, and so on, that can tell you, well, this is now state-of-the-art. This is what typical companies in your business, in your industry have been doing. This is what we do, and so on. So you can do that. Let me stop here because I have another one to add, but let me ask my colleagues if they want to comment on that.
Yes.
Maria, I'm sure that in SAP, that's a lot of the reason people use SAP on the cloud, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said made a lot of sense. I would also say that this innovation, being able to innovate faster on the cloud, is a really big differentiator for the cloud. The cloud providers will have already built in content for your process that's automated. possibly using artificial intelligence, all sorts of, interesting new technologies, which would be so much harder for you to implement yourself.
Yeah.
And also these applications come with out-of-the-box reports. You can get operational reports, maybe that's very manually intensive for you today. Even add maybe analytics on top of the report and maybe predictive in the future. So you're really going to be able to do what take that process and that's what modernizing would mean, is not only just making it more automated and digital, less manual prone, less error prone, but then you can add all of this new technology, which would be incredibly difficult to do on your own.
Right. And if I could add just a little bit, Maria, to that, if you have from a business model point of view, every time you move some big application to the cloud, you can reduce your CapEx because you're not bringing in the new server and storage and all that. But also over time, if you take the right approach and it works for you, you could begin to help your OpEx too. It would take you more maintenance time and so on and so forth to deal with your own in-house system. And here we're talking about leveraging the skills of these outside providers. Now, here I'm not saying you don't need inside people, but picking and choosing the idea of where to apply this.